I work for a discipleship school at the moment. I'm running that. Last year, I was working for Blackburn Diocese, so I helped put on this conference last year. And then before that, which I'll be talking a lot about, is I was a youth worker for a Church of England church in Bradford city centre. So I got this 4-year kind of crash course on how to manage bad behaviour through doing that. As I've been kind of thinking about, what does it look like in a Christian context to deal with bad behavior? I think the first thing you have to think about is, how does God deal with us? So can we have the next slide, please? So we're just going to think a bit about the theology of bad behavior. And in Proverbs 3, 1, that's not right, is it? 1 to 12. It's one of those verses. It was good that the TED Talk about preparation was a great one for me. It says, "My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent his rebuke, because the Lord disciplines those he loves, as a father the son he delights in." And it's that second half that I just want us to think about, that idea of holding discipline and love in balance. I've been around many youth groups that actually they do the discipline too much, and they shout at their young people, or the youth leaders stand around the side like bouncers, as opposed to getting involved, as we've just heard about. But I think as well, the opposite to that is sometimes we try and go towards this love thing that like everything has to be okay, and we can't tell our young people off because what if they don't come back? And actually, the way that God loves us is that He loves us so much He doesn't let us stay in the same place. And actually, that's the same that we should be with our young people. Is actually we want to build them up to have skills in life. We want to build them up to be disciples. We want to show them sort of like the greatest way to live. And sometimes that comes by discipline and by saying no and by saying this isn't right and this needs to be dealt with. And so when we're thinking about what does it mean in our youth work to discipline our young people, to manage their behavior, the first thing we have to do is just think about, how does God do this for me? And in the same way, do that for others. I remember being at Bible college and we had this worship night, and there was a guy who I'd just kind of got to know, but I knew there was just a few things in his life that I really felt God was saying, this isn't right. And I remember having that word and being like, God, how do I go to this person and say you're doing something wrong? And God just said to me, if you do it out of love, it don't really matter what you say. And that's true to an extent. Obviously, we need to watch the words that we say and how we say it to people. But actually, if we're doing it from a true place of loving this young person, not out of anger or frustration, then we're already on the right path. So I just want to go through a few other things, if we can. We're going to look at two very quickly. Going to look at two areas of this. We're going to look at preventing undesirable behavior and addressing undesirable behavior. So if we can just go on to the next one there. When it comes to preventing the behavior that we don't want to see in our youth group, we need to really do that as a team. And I think this is a big thing, and kind of Lucy demonstrated it with her story, that actually as a team, we all need to be on the same page. And even as a church, we need to be on the same page. Because otherwise we get into these difficult situations where, one leader's gone off on their own doing what they think's right, but actually it's really bad. And actually it's so painful to hear stories when a young person has stopped coming to a youth group because they've fallen out with a leader, or something's been dealt with badly. And so as a team, let's make sure we know what our youth group is. We've got our aims for our youth group. We know what we want to achieve through it, and we've done that by thinking about who are the young people who are attending. Because when it comes to the behavior that we're expecting of our young people, that is very dependent on the kind of group that we run. I did a year in a place called Harborne in Birmingham, which is a very well-off area where all the students were getting A stars and were the most perfect people. And so if in that context where we were having more open discussions, actually like some people just interrupting other people, that was like seen as like the worst behavior that we had. It was like, but then when I moved to Bradford, and you've got all these kids running wild and like actually bad behavior, that the scale, depending on the group and depending on the young people, changes a lot. And with that, it's what are we doing in our youth groups as well? Are we expecting them to sit, these young people who maybe are struggling at school, are we expecting them to sit through a half an hour talk that we're giving, but actually on what can they handle? So to define what undesirable behavior, bad behavior looks like in our youth group as a team is really important for the first thing. Then we need to communicate our expectations to our young people and do that regularly. Regularly kind of say, this is who we are, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and this is what we expect of you. Because it's so difficult if a young person is coming from a family where, they're not expected to listen to each other, or they're not expected to take responsibility, and we're giving them responsibility, then how are they to know what's expected of them when they come into our churches or our youth groups? So let's communicate that clearly to our young people. And then let's talk practically with our team about how we go about preventing this behavior. Can we have the next slide? So with that, using our team, again, I've seen so many people where they're leading from the front, but the team is just like having a conversation, or they're just doing other things that or sorting something else out. And actually, what is really, really helpful, if I'm leading from the front and Lucy's an assistant volunteer in that group, actually, if she's sitting with the people who she knows might be talking or might be struggling, if she's involved in that, that's going to prevent any undesirable behavior. It's going to prevent other people getting distracted. If she's just out and like talking to another leader or something, then it's on me, and it becomes really difficult. So it's a whole team thing, no matter what role you have. It's great that I've kind of come at the end of this, because we already talked about this idea of building relationship with your young people, and it almost all this sort of behavior management comes out of relationship with our young people. And lastly, to just recognize the good. Especially if a young person is behaving badly in your youth group, they probably are, not always, but they probably are in school, and they possibly are at home as well. And so they might just be filled with this kind of negative, you're doing something wrong, and that's what they expect. So whenever we get to recognize the good in that young person and encourage them and say, thank you for doing this, or well done for this, actually we need to take that and we need to tell them that we love them. We need to tell them that we're proud of them, because that's huge. And then finally, just addressing undesirable behavior. Again, with your whole team, know the process that you have to sorting behavior out. So the ways that a few tips on this is just to make sure that you're not shouting at people. I've tried shouting in Bradford. I tried it as a quick fix to get people to stop. It never ever works. Fortunately, I've never fallen out with a young person because of it. They just kind of look at me a bit weird, and then I just go, okay, yeah, that's probably not going to work. There are very occasionally there are situations if someone's in danger and you just need to get someone's attention. It's sometimes useful, but when it's just someone doing something wrong or you're getting irritated, like to practice that peace and patience that God gives us, and not shout. It never works. Actually, just taking them aside, explaining to them, why this isn't right. Maybe having a traffic light system like green, amber, red, and that kind of stuff. That I can't give you a specific. This is what will work for your group, but just because each group is different. But to make sure that the whole team knows what is the process when this behavior comes up. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, our young people are so good. They never have any bad behavior. We never have any issues. First of all, we're all jealous of you. And secondly, actually still get something like this in place, because you never know who's going to turn up. You never know who's having a bad day. And you don't want to be dealing with this stuff when it's come up. You want to have this stuff ready and the whole team to know about it. So make sure you communicate your process as well to the young people. If something goes wrong, this is going to happen. Stick to your guns. Don't just go, oh, I know I've said that you're that you can't come next week, but oh, it's okay. But actually, if you say something, it goes back to this idea of discipline. Actually, it's unloving to then move those boundaries, because our young people don't have clarity on that. And to be loving, actually, sometimes it is saying, actually, you got to have a week off, or actually, you can't come back in tonight. You can come next week. You can always come back, but actually today, we're going to call it there. And I've done that often, and every time people have come back, I've never fallen out with a young person because of this, which is an amazing thing. And then finally, as hopefully we do all know, really being careful, making sure our process is sticking with safeguarding regulations, making sure that actually when things are heated and when we're getting frustrated, actually that's the first thing. Like we're not breaking our safeguarding regulations. I've got a minute left, so I'm going to stop there. Let you go on. But finally, just to say, if you are you're the main volunteer in your youth group or your youth worker who's heading up the team, and you want to have this conversation with your team, I'll recommend kind of going through a bit of what we did. So start with theology, start with the why do we need to address behavior, then look at your own group, and how does managing behavior apply to this group in particular, and then the process, just to give some context to everyone in that group about how you're going about doing that. Thank you.